Hello guys, today we're going to do a video on MW2's minimal spec and recommended spec requirements. We're going to be starting it off with the recommended specs, which is a GTX 1060 and a 477K, I believe. I'm using a GTX 1060 6GB and an i5 4590, which is a bit weaker than the i7 that's required for the recommended settings, but it's close enough I think, so should be good. And the RAM is also 16 gigs, and that's how much we're running right now as well. I'm aiming for 1080p, and quality settings I'm using the recommended and set to performance. So these are the settings that the game gave to us. I'm not sure how optimized these are. I haven't tried it out yet, but I guess we'll see in a second. Let's jump into the game and we'll see how it goes. Now if I was going to guess, I would say that these spec requirements are kind of low, especially the CPU part, since this game does have ground war, and ground war is going to be far more intensive in the CPU than the normal game. So I think for ground war you will 100% run into a CPU bottleneck, and same goes to Warzone as well. But these are for the beta, and the beta doesn't have the ground war mode I believe, so could still be playable for the normal maps. And already we're getting 50 FPS, CPU's at 96%. If you got the i7 version of this game, if you have the i7, you probably get a little bit more performance out of it. So we'll give it a couple extra frames as a headroom of having an i7. But honestly, we are able to hold 60 surprisingly. It's very close to it. That's very nice. Oh, we're falling to the 50s though. See how playable this game is with these kind of frame rates and how bad it stutters. I am playing without sound since the USB-C cable that I use for my headphones is now being used to give this computer internet. So, a bit scuffed, but we'll be fine. CPU is pretty much maxed out at 98% on average, pretty much. It's sitting at 90% right now, and GPU's at 50%. So that's what I was telling you guys at the start, that you're gonna be running into a bit of an issue when you're playing Ground War, for example, or even Warzone. This game is playable right now with the CPU. I would say it's not too bad. It does have some lag spikes here and there, but if you can definitely get used to it. You know. It's not too bad. VRAM's at 5 gigs, which is fine. Normal RAM is above 8 gigs, which is the minimum spec requirements. GPU's at 50%, so you can technically get over 100 FPS with this GPU with the 1060. That was awesome. Glad I ate that. This is a bit worrying because the GTX 960 is the minimum spec requirements for this game, and that is a 2GB card, I believe, with a 4GB variant. So I don't think it's gonna be playable with the 2GB variant at all, but the 4GB variant might have a chance. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and actually change the settings myself and just play at everything on the lowest. So quad shadow quality low, we don't want that on medium at all. Looking good. SMAA is the lowest it can go for anti-aliasing, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. We can use NIS still. Looks fine. Give us some extra performance. Let's see how it does now at low settings. Can we hold a consistent 60? No, we can't. We're still falling into the 50s, and the game looks far worse, to be honest. The game's recommended settings that it applied for us looks far better and performs better as well, it seems like, because we are in the 40s now as well. So I would avoid playing with your own settings, or even on the lowest settings technically, and just sticking with what the game gives you. Just go to settings. Oh, okay, I thought it was an enemy. You go to graphics, and then you choose reset to recommended, and then it will ask you for quality or performance, and you just choose performance. Since it's actually crazy how much better the game looks as well. This doesn't look the best. This looks very bad actually. FPS so far is not looking too good. We're getting 60 FPS only. Wow. Okay, there we go. Maybe it's the intro only. Now we're getting 55 FPS. Seriously? 1080p can't hold 60 with 1060? That seems kinda... Okay, there we go. We're getting 69 FPS to 74. We can still fall into the 50s surprisingly. I thought we had a guaranteed 60 FPS right here. I just died. That's not good. Having no sound kinda sucks though. I can't even hear... This is a wide area. We're getting 56 FPS. So in the more open areas of the map, you're gonna definitely see more FPS drops. And that goes for the minimum spec and the recommended spec. Now obviously since we GP bound, we can obviously go ahead and lower the settings some more. That's awesome. I'm not getting any kills. So I dropped all the settings to the lowest. Now I want to see what kind of FPS we get once we run outside. Let's try and get there in one piece. So we're getting like 55, 56 FPS out here. Someone just see me? Oh, that's my teammate. Okay. Yeah. Still falling to the 50s, but it's the high 50s now instead of the mid 50s. Okay, so for our minimum spec requirements, we've got 8 gigs of RAM. I'm using the same CPU as before, but for the minimum spec, it's an i5 3rd gen, and for the GPU, I'm using a GTX 1050 Ti, which will get about the same FPS as a 960, maybe a bit higher depending on the game. But normally, those two are very close to each other in terms of performance. VRAM, we have 4 gigs obviously, so if we got a 960 with 2 gigs, this is not gonna run. We're already way above that, 3.7 gigs. And everything's on the lowest. This is what the game recommended. Alright, jumping into it and not doing so well. Getting 30 FPS. I'm not even playing at 1080p, we're running at 950 pretty much. 40 FPS. It's honestly not that bad, I gotta say. Wow, it's not that bad at all. We can just actually hit 60. Nice, not bad. Obviously it's not gonna be consistent 60. I'm gonna easily fall into the 40s still, but honestly, you can get used to this. Whoa, getting some lag. RAM usage is at 6 gigs, so even though we have 8 gigs available to us, it's still running quite fine. CPU is at 80%, so I don't know about a 3rd gen i5. Could be worse. Could be about the same as this, but this will give you a vague idea on how it's gonna run. This lagginess is kind of crazy though. I don't want to leave because it's the same map as before, but come on, it's got to get better than this, right? It feels like it's fixed. But yeah, this doesn't feel that bad at all. If you play enough on this setup with this kind of frame rates, you can get used to it. And since we are GPU bound here, we can obviously go ahead and enable FSR to make the overlay smaller. It's a bit more pixelated now, but that's fine. Gonna go ahead and enable FSR again to balance. This is gonna look like crap, but very blurry. Oh, it's not blurry, it's very pixelated. But FPS is in the high 50s now. Now, from what we know before, the CPU will still drop into the low 50s. But honestly, it's doing way better. Now, the quality is not as good as before, but the FPS is pretty close to 60, honestly. We lowest I've seen it hit is 51, so still very good. And beforehand we were getting 40 FPS at lowest pretty much, so it's a decent upgrade for a low FPS. And it's very hard to spot enemies, that's the thing. It's gonna be kind of difficult, but play for a bit longer and then I'm gonna wrap up the video here. And next video will be on the Steam Deck. MW2 on the Steam Deck. We're gonna have to use Windows and see how it compares to the minimal spec requirements. 60 FPS is gonna be tough on the Steam Deck, I feel like, but maybe we can get a stable 40 going. Alright, that's it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. If you give it a like, to the channel, I appreciate it as well. See you next time.